Welcome to the Explainer. In the 19th century, two of the world's greatest empires, Britain and Russia, were locked in this incredible, shadowy struggle for control of Central Asia. Today, we're going to dig into how this great game of spies and influence completely spiraled into the First Anglo-Afghan War. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to walk through 6 key stages. We'll see exactly how a rivalry over territory and trade just kept escalating, pulling Afghanistan right into the middle of a conflict that would shape the region for years to come. All right, first things first. To really understand how this war ever happened, we have to get a feel for the high-stakes game of chess that was being played across the entire continent. Let's set the board. You really have to think of this as a kind of 19th century Cold War. I mean, this fight wasn't happening on some big battlefield with British and Russian soldiers. No, it was all in the shadows. A game of spies, of diplomats, of pure influence over the huge stretches of Central Asia. Both empires were convinced the region was absolutely vital to their power. So, with that rivalry in mind, let's look at how Russia's relentless push to the east started to set off some serious alarm bells for the British. It was becoming a direct threat to their most prized possession. Just take a look at the map here. You can see the problem right away, can't you? There's Afghanistan, smack in the middle. It was the critical buffer state, basically the last major piece of land, separating these two giant, expanding powers. And what this timeline really shows us is just how calculated Russia was being. Gaining influence in Persia wasn't just about grabbing land. It was a major power play. By blocking British trade routes, Russia was flexing its muscles and pushing its influence right up to the doorstep of British India. This threatened the very source of Britain's imperial wealth. So everything really boiled down to this one huge question for British policymakers. Protecting the crown jewel of their empire was everything. And the answer, they thought, was to control Afghanistan. In response, the Governor-General of India, a man named Lord Auckland, decided he couldn't just sit back and watch. He made a big diplomatic move, one designed to secure Britain's very vulnerable western flank. I mean, the logic here was pretty straightforward, right? If Afghanistan is your friend, then it can't be used as a staging ground by your enemy. A stable, pro-British government in Kabul seemed like the perfect shield for India. Now, you'd think this would be an easy deal. Dost Mohammad was totally willing to talk. He was in a bit of a tough spot himself. But he had one condition for his friendship. And for the British, it was a really, really difficult one. So at first, things seemed pretty simple. Britain makes an offer, Dost Mohammad sees the value in having a powerful ally, but he wants to use that new power to solve one of his own biggest problems. And this is where you can see the incredible diplomatic trap the British had just walked into. See, to get Dost Mohammad on their side, they'd have to lean on Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the incredibly powerful ruler of the Sikh Empire, to give back the city of Peshawar. But doing that meant breaking their own treaty with him, and that would tick off a really important ally on another one of India's borders. They were totally stuck. So, Britain's in a bind. They're caught between two potential allies, and Lord Auckland has to make a choice. A choice that would kick off a chain of events leading straight to war. At the end of the day, Britain just couldn't deliver on the one thing that mattered most to the Afghan ruler. For Dost Mohammad, an alliance that couldn't get him back the city of Peshawar, well, it was basically worthless. The whole deal collapsed. And for the British, this was a total disaster. The absolute worst-case scenario. From their point of view, the Afghan ruler they had just tried to befriend was now openly talking to their greatest rival. You can imagine the panic. The alarm bells were ringing loud and clear. So, with diplomacy completely in shambles, Lord Auckland's strategy does a complete 180. He shifts from trying to make friends to a policy of outright aggression. What we're seeing here is this fundamental change in thinking. The goal was no longer to win over Dost Mohammad, but to replace him. This was a policy of striking first, of getting rid of a potential threat before it even had a chance to become a real one. The fear of Russian influence was now all the justification they needed for direct intervention. And just like that, the path to war was set. A whole series of strategic fears and massive diplomatic blunders had closed every single door, except for the one that led to a full-blown conflict. The great game was about to get very real. And that's our explainer on the road to the First Anglo-Afghan War. It's really a stark reminder of how these huge geopolitical pressures, combined with just a few critical mistakes, can turn a great game into a real devastating war. It leaves you wondering about that fine line between diplomacy and conflict.